Welcome to Afterlife Echoes Season 2. The UK is no stranger to ghost stories, but some places go far beyond the usual bumps in the night. In this second collection of haunted locations, we're uncovering even more of Britain's darkest corners. From ancient castles and forgotten forests to eerie rivers and centuries-old ruins, each spot hides a chilling secret waiting to be told. Join me as we journey through more haunted locations in the UK, where history never truly rests. West Wycombe Caves, Buckinghamshire. Beneath the rolling hills of Buckinghamshire lies a labyrinth of chalk tunnels carved into darkness. They look innocuous by day, but these are the Hellfire Caves, once the secret meeting place of debauchery, and today, the haunt of the inexplicable. Carved in the 1740s by Sir Francis Dashwood, the caves were a private theatre for the notorious Hellfire Club, a gathering of aristocrats, politicians, and intellectuals who reveled in scandal and sacrilege. Here, they performed mock rituals, drank exotic liqueurs, and allegedly held black masses by torchlight. They called it the Grotto. But soon, people started calling it something far more sinister. One of the most enduring and unsettling spirits here is that of Suki, a young barmaid who worked at a local inn in the 18th century. According to legend, she was lured into the caves by 3 local boys pretending to be suitors, hoping to teach her a lesson for aspiring above her station. But what was meant to be a prank turned fatal. Suki was found dead, having either fallen or been struck during the confrontation. Since then, her ghost has been reported wandering near the banqueting hall, weeping softly. Some guests say she reaches out toward them, then vanishes into the chalk wall. A psychic visiting the caves reportedly collapsed in the same spot, whispering, "She didn't fall, she was pushed." Multiple staff and visitors have independently reported seeing a tall, dark, cloaked figure standing silently at the far end of long passageways. He does not move, does not speak, but vanishes the moment you look away. Several paranormal teams have captured him in photographs and thermal imaging, though no heat signature is ever recorded. One former guide quit after a solo night tour where he saw the figure standing in the Franklin Cave, and it smiled. A frequent report by ghost hunters is the sudden appearance of a sharp, sulfurous smell, often described as rotten eggs or scorched hair, especially near the inner temple, where hellfire rituals supposedly took place. Cameras malfunction, and some claim to hear chanting in Latin or Greek, echoing faintly down the corridors. Even stranger, a few investigators claim the tunnels shift, as if the layout changes while inside. One visitor was lost for nearly an hour in a section that doesn't exist on any floor plan. In 1997, a group of amateur ghost hunters filmed an overnight investigation. During the early morning hours, one member became nauseous and collapsed in the circle, a room believed to be where mock sacrifices took place. When they helped her up, they noticed a thick red smear on the stone beneath her. Thinking it was blood, they photographed it. The next morning, nothing remained, not even a stain. But the photographs showed clearly visible blood pooled beneath her head. This is one of the few anomalies that was witnessed by multiple people, photographed, but physically disappeared. Several guests report seeing moving lights deeper in the tunnels, described as flame-like, as if carried by people walking through with torches. But they never catch up to the light. It just fades or turns a corner, into a wall. One visitor claimed they followed a light, turned a corner, and felt a hand grip their wrist tightly. When they screamed, it let go, but left behind a cold, bruised fingerprint. One of the more terrifying reports comes from a private paranormal team in the early 2000s. While investigating the inner temple, they set up infrared cameras. Around 3:17 a.m., they recorded something crawling across the floor, but the footage didn't show a human. It was described as a pale, emaciated form with elongated limbs, jerking in unnatural movements. When one team member approached, he claimed to hear a voice inside his head whispering, "You're not supposed to be here." He refused to return and allegedly developed night terrors and paranoia for months afterward. The footage was never released publicly, but has become infamous among niche UK paranormal researchers. Deep within the caves, behind a gate normally closed to the public, lies an abandoned vertical shaft, possibly part of the original chalk quarry. Maintenance workers in the 1980s reported hearing screaming from below, not echoes, but blood-curdling, agonized human screams, as if someone were being tortured underground. When investigated, nothing was found. One worker claimed the air was, quote, thick and wrong, and swore he saw a rope swinging over the shaft as if someone had just been hanged, though there's no place to anchor such a rope. The caves have had multiple instances where visitors suffer sudden and intense psychological breakdowns, not due to fear or claustrophobia, but something deeper. A woman on a history tour began scratching at her face, screaming that something was crawling under her skin. A teenage boy reportedly began speaking in Latin, though his family swore he didn't know the language. A man was also found rocking back and forth in the banqueting hall, whispering, "It's still going on." They're still doing it. Each case was followed by a medical or psychiatric follow-up. The Hellfire Caves weren't just carved from chalk. They were carved from secrecy, and some say that secrecy never left. What lingers now isn't loud or obvious. It's patient, content to wait in the dark, where even the bravest dare not wander. St. Mary's Church, Bedfordshire. St. Mary's Church in the village of Clophill dates back to the 14th century, standing in eerie isolation on a hill overlooking the countryside. Abandoned in the 1840s when a new church was built in the village, the original St. Mary's has decayed into a Gothic shell, its crumbling stonework and shattered windows now shrouded in trees and shadow. Despite its ruined state, the church remains consecrated ground, and yet it has earned infamy over the years for becoming a hotbed of dark rituals, grave desecrations, and occult activity. In the 1960s, St. Mary's gained national attention after a series of graves were disturbed, and bones, including skulls, were removed and arranged in patterns inside the church, surrounded by signs of black magic rituals. These weren't isolated events. Similar acts occurred again in the 1970s and 1980s. St. Mary's Church is not just creepy due to its visual decay. There are intense and deeply unsettling reports from both investigators and casual visitors. Locals and police discovered ritual sites with animal remains, blood, and occult symbols. Paranormal researchers have described the atmosphere as suffocating, with aggressive, oppressive energy that builds the longer you stay. Witnesses have frequently reported seeing dark, humanoid shapes moving between gravestones and around the church's ruins, some with glowing red eyes watching from the shadows. These figures vanish when approached, but leave behind a sense of dread and sometimes physical symptoms like nausea or shortness of breath. Hikers and paranormal researchers have described a strange man in Victorian clothing or robes, standing silently among the gravestones, often mistaken for a living reenactor. However, when approached, he is seen to fade backward into the shadows or into a tomb wall. One report even claims his face was rotted or hollow, like a corpse. Many visitors report sudden and inexplicable nosebleeds, migraines or dizziness, particularly at the church's threshold or around the desecrated tombs. A few ghost hunters have claimed to feel overwhelming chest pressure, as if something unseen was trying to stop them from breathing when walking toward the graveyard's edge. At night, it's not uncommon for locals to hear screaming or hysterical laughter coming from the church ruins, despite the area being completely deserted. These sounds are often described as inhuman or distorted, echoing unnaturally through the surrounding trees. One nearby resident claimed to hear a voice say, quote, "Bring them back," in a raspy, elongated whisper from her open window, though no one was outside. There are also multiple accounts, particularly in the 1980s and again in the early 2000s, of hooded figures seen performing rituals at the site late at night, often with torches or candles. Those who stumbled upon these scenes reported feeling an intense, primal fear, sometimes describing eyes in the dark, watching from the trees, or paralysis-like effects where they were unable to move or speak. In one chilling account from the early 2000s, 2 visitors claimed they suddenly found themselves in a fully intact version of St. Mary's, no longer ruined. They described hearing church bells, smelling incense, and seeing figures in robes performing a strange, silent ritual at the altar. In a panic, they fled, and the church returned to its decayed state. This experience has only been documented twice, but is consistent with time distortion or dimensional overlays, often linked to places of high energy or occult interference. There are also a growing number of sightings of a woman in a black veil and funeral dress, standing motionless near the largest grave in the churchyard. She's most commonly seen in peripheral vision and disappears when looked at directly. In one rare instance, a man claimed he saw her face under the veil, like something half-burned and rotting. Anyone who sees her directly reportedly suffers intense nightmares or hallucinations afterward. St. Mary's Church may look like just another forgotten ruin, but beneath the crumbling stone and weathered graves lies something far older, far darker, and far more active than most dare to believe. Whether it's the remnants of occult rituals, the cries of the disturbed dead, or the shadows that crawl after midnight, one thing is certain. This place was never truly abandoned, and those who visit often leave with more than they bargained for. The QE2. Commissioned in 1967 and serving until 2008, the QE2 was the flagship of the Cunard Line and one of the most famous ocean liners ever built. She ferried thousands of passengers across the Atlantic, served as a troop ship during the Falklands War, and was renowned for her elegance and speed. Like many ships of her era, the QE2 experienced tragedy on board, including passenger deaths, accidents, and mysterious disappearances. Today, she is permanently moored in Dubai as a floating hotel and event venue, where people can still board her, stay overnight, and explore her historic decks. Over time, crew members and guests have shared stories of strange happenings that suggest she's haunted by the memories and spirits of her past. One of the most commonly reported spirits is that of a young steward who tragically died in an accident on board during the ship's early years. Staff and guests have reported seeing a shadowy figure in the crew uniform who appears near the crew quarters or dining areas, sometimes helping guests or simply standing silently. But occasionally, this apparition has been seen with a sorrowful or angry expression, as if trapped in eternal duty. During the Falklands War, the QE2 served as a troop ship. It's said that some soldiers who died or suffered traumatic injuries on board left behind restless spirits. Witnesses describe hearing anguished cries or seeing ghostly soldiers marching silently on deck, particularly near the lower decks used during wartime. There are also accounts of a child spirit haunting the ship, reportedly a passenger who died during one of the ship's long voyages. The child's ghost is often associated with unexplained laughter, cries, or the sound of a child running along corridors, where no children have been for decades. Some visitors say the presence feels both sad and eerie. Guests and staff have reported seeing doppelgangers, apparitions that look exactly like someone else on board. One crew member swore they saw their colleague walking past them below deck, only to find out that same person was asleep in their cabin at the time. These encounters are often accompanied by nausea or sudden disorientation. In a passageway near the former crew quarters, multiple staff members claim to have heard blood-curdling screams that sound like someone in mortal danger, loud, panicked, and echoing. Whenever staff check the source, the area is empty. Some believe it ties to a suicide that allegedly occurred there during the ship's active service. Though the ship is now stationary and not sailing, some guests and maintenance staff have reported hearing rushing water or even seeing water flooding a hallway or cabin, only for it to vanish seconds later. Some link this to flooding incidents or drownings that allegedly occurred during storms at sea. One of the creepiest apparitions seen aboard the ship is a tall male figure in officer's dress, seen standing near the stairwells, but with no eyes in his face, just empty sockets. Multiple unrelated witnesses have described the same entity, standing motionless, staring silently before vanishing into thin air. Another recurring and unsettling claim involves guests reporting an unknown person entering their room late at night, sitting on the bed or pacing. When they check or turn on the light, no one is there. In one case, a woman claimed she woke up to the weight of someone lying next to her. She turned over to find an indent in the mattress, but no one visible. A guest once reported seeing someone locked in a cabin, pounding on the window in panic. Security arrived within minutes, only to find the cabin unlocked and completely empty. Security footage confirmed no one entered or exited before or after the sighting. The room was later said to have a tragic history tied to a passenger who died alone mid-voyage and wasn't discovered for hours. Other notable paranormal reports include cold spots in former first-class cabins, unexplained footsteps on empty decks, sudden smells of cigarette smoke or perfume, and guests waking up to find the furniture has been moved inside their cabins. These are but a few of the reported paranormal incidents said to haunt the decks of the QE2, a ship that may have stopped sailing but hasn't stopped stirring. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, one thing's certain: some passengers never truly left. Clifton Hall, Nottinghamshire. Clifton Hall in Nottinghamshire looks like the kind of place you'd see on the front of a postcard, but behind its elegant stone facade lies something far more sinister, a place where history and horror collide, and where even the walls seem to whisper warnings. The origins of Clifton Hall date all the way back to the 11th century, though the grand manor we see today was largely developed in the late 16th and early 17th centuries. It was home to the Clifton family, one of the most influential aristocratic families in Nottinghamshire, for over 700 years. This was a seat of wealth, power, and prestige, but behind the grandeur there were whispers of darkness, of secrets. In the 1950s, the estate was sold and repurposed as a school, and later converted into luxury apartments in the early 2000s. But the energy inside Clifton Hall didn't change. In fact, it seemed to grow stronger. In 2007, a wealthy businessman named Anwar Rashid bought Clifton Hall for £3.6 million. He moved in with his wife and 4 children, expecting a quiet, luxurious life in the countryside. But what they got was something else entirely. The Rashid family began hearing knocks and bangs at all hours, voices echoing through empty rooms. Their children said they were being watched in their sleep, and sometimes even spoken to. One of the most disturbing early incidents involved a baby monitor. One night, Anwar's wife heard their newborn crying. She rushed to the nursery only to find the baby completely silent and alone. Yet, the monitor kept playing the sound of a baby wailing in distress. And then, things escalated. Anwar said he began to see shadows moving across the walls, not from lamps, not from lights, but shadows with no source. Dark figures would drift past doorways. Disembodied footsteps echoed down the halls at night, and loud bangs would be heard from vacant rooms. One of the most terrifying moments came when the family saw a figure of a woman, cloaked in grey, standing at the edge of their bed, silent, motionless, staring. And when they'd turn on the lights, she would vanish. But the final straw came in the form of blood-like stains that appeared on the walls of one of the rooms and refused to be painted over. After just 8 months of this relentless haunting, the Rashid family fled the mansion, leaving furniture, clothing, everything behind. When asked why, Anwar said, quote, "The ghosts didn't want us there, and we could not fight them." In unsubstantiated folklore and urban legend, a trio known as the hallowed Jeveli Hinbi Trinity was said to have practiced black magic and satanic rituals at Clifton Hall and in the surrounding woods. In 1907, it is said they were discovered taking part in blood rituals at the hall and were executed in the woods. According to folklore, the trio came back as 3 vengeful spirits and took their revenge on the local people. A young girl named Maggie and her family were said to have been cursed by the Trinity, cursing her and her lineage for centuries to come. There have been reports of whispering coming from deep within the woods at night, whispering in Aramaic language. It is believed to be the whisperings of the Trinity itself. Multiple amateur investigators in the area have shared claims of hearing low chanting in the woods, especially between 2 and 4 a.m. Some recordings on paranormal blogs claim to have captured strange, rhythmic sounds that resemble ritualistic humming, as well as shadow figures moving between the trees. Whether this activity can be attributed to the Jeveli Hinbi Trinity is debatable, but eerie nonetheless. Clifton Hall isn't just a haunted house, it's a warning. A place where history refuses to rest and where the living are never truly alone. 8 centuries of power, prestige, and something far more disturbing. From the activity in the hall itself, to the urban legend of the Jeveli Hinbi Trinity and their vengeful spirits. Whatever haunts Clifton Hall drove its last family out in fear. Thank you for joining me. If you like the content, please feel free to like, subscribe, comment below, and support the channel. See you again soon.